talk a little bit tonight about the relationship between certainty and fear. And I should say, it's probably a video where I've thought through the topic less than some others. But as I've done a few times of late, kind of trying to work through it live. So certainty and fear, I mentioned them and the relationship between them because those are probably the two topics or feelings, emotions, whatever, that I think have the potential to be most dangerous. Most dangerous to the ability to think better, right? Logically, rationally, efficiently, try and do the right thing to the extent there is one, find objective truth. Fear and certainty seem to be the biggest threat to that. And the question is, are they the same coin, just two sides, right? Are they two opposites, polar opposites completely? Are they unrelated at all? Are they literally maybe the same thing? That's kind of what I'm wondering and working through. And the reason I focus on them so much, I guess you could look at it from both sides. When I see people that seem to, quote unquote, get it, right? Have an understanding of the importance of thinking better and self-doubt, questioning yourself and not being certain. There's no fear there, right? You'll hear people, it's Socrates spoke like this, Richard Feynman, who's somebody I've been reading and watching a lot of lately. Some of these people, you just see it. There's no fear in being wrong. There's no fear in learning something new. There's no fear in something not working at all the way you thought it did, no matter how long you thought it did. There's a joy in it almost, right? There's a joy and a pleasure that comes with that uncertainty that removes all fear. What would you be afraid of, right? If there's better information, then what do I need to be afraid of? So you see people like that I think highlight the importance of understanding fear and certainty and really knowing what it is. And part of the reason this topic came up is I had been watching some Jordan Peterson videos that my brother had sent me. And I always find him an interesting person because when he speaks, what he says, not always, particularly when he's in interviews, I find that he's, it's a little bit more of a game there and the way he plays it. I don't always love what he says in interviews, but when he's just speaking freely, kind of free form monologue, oftentimes there's a lot of logic and rationale to it. You may not agree with it. Some of it, a good bit of it, I actually do agree with the thought behind it, the theories, the ways of thinking and questioning yourself, the ways to try and improve, etc. So the content is usually solid. But what I find with him is that there's such a confidence that comes with it. There's such a certainty of what he's saying and that he has figured out this thing and what it is. And that made me wonder, the first question I asked was, and I was actually talking to my brother about it, if he is certain, if he thinks he's got it figured out and he knows it's going to be better for people, maybe he's just faking that certainty. Maybe he understands that certainty is not a good thing, but he's faking it. He's using his superpower seemingly for good. He's trying to get people to understand a way to think better. The problem in that is, and it may be a bit circular and it's kind of built into the definition, A, how do you know that you're right? How could you be sure of that you are right or there is an objective right? But B, as soon as you start using certainty to convince people that would otherwise be unsure, but they're convinced because of your certainty, right? It's not the content. He's using the certainty because he thinks he has to convince them. As soon as you do that, as soon as you use your certainty as a weapon, in effect, to convince somebody of something, no matter how good intentioned it is, no matter how certain you are that it's the right thing and that's why you're doing it, almost by definition, it's a problem. It's a bad thing because you could never be certain. Just by the fact that you think you're that certain, that proves that you couldn't be that certain. You just don't get it well enough. So I see someone like him and it makes me wonder, what's even someone like him who gets it, who seems to get it so much, to such a level, even he seems to struggle with that piece of it. And what's behind that? And I do think fear comes into play. I mean, I would have to imagine, and I'm assuming and I'm projecting a lot of things on Jordan Peterson in this case, but the logical path it would take me down is the reason why he appears so certain is almost directly proportional to how afraid he is, the fear he has if this message doesn't get out. What does it mean for people? For whatever reason, maybe it was the way he was born, maybe it was the way he was raised, the way he was brought up. He feels some moral obligation to teach people the way, right? He feels some moral obligation. He feels like he is maybe best equipped to do it. He's been given a gift of some sort and he needs to share that. And I think that's where that certainty comes from, because of that. And because the fear, if he wastes that, if he doesn't get the message out, what it'll mean for society, what it'll mean for him that he didn't, succeed in getting that message out. Again, a lot of assumptions here, but you could see a scenario where that's how it plays out, where that certainty is bred from fear, or maybe they just feed off each other. I don't know that one breeds the other, but they feed off each other. And the right way, seemingly, right? Let's take Jordan Peterson. Let's stick with it. If he did feel like, hey, I really think there's value here. I really think there's something to it. I almost think, again, by definition, you would treat it with humility. You would understand that I need people to understand this and get it in its purest, truest sense. I can't use certainty to trick people or trick the mind. The only way this works and can ensure that it's done in the right way and it doesn't just create some new, authoritarian type regime where everybody just believes this new thing, right? Maybe for thousands of years or however long it was God, and in many cases Christianity that people followed. Let's even assume in Jordan Peterson's wildest dreams, he was successful and converted everybody. Well, now he becomes the Messiah or, the God, who knows, whatever it is. And the things he says become Bible, become the things people believe. And again, if he got it, if he understood what this was, that would not be anything he'd ever want. He would understand that can't be the way it is. It has to be where people truly understand to question, and they get there on their own path. And you can apply it to today's climate, right? Maybe not even the Jordan Petersons who seem to get it really well, or the Richard Feynmans who seem to get it really well, and comparing them. You just look at, everyday people, myself, other people that I see on social media, and you see so much anger and so much hatred and so much certainty and so much fear all wound up together, whatever the topic is, right? Wearing masks for coronavirus. There's so much fear about we're going to die, and there's so much certainty that people are going to die if you don't wear the mask. And, again, it cuts all ways. You see people on the conservative side, so much certainty that, hey, America's not racist. We're not a disgraceful, embarrassing country. And so much fear that if the other side takes over, it's going to just destroy America. And that fear mixed with that certainty causes this rage and this anger, right? For people that don't really understand it, aren't self-aware enough. They just find themselves angry at things. So I think that relationship in certainty and fear is so critical. And okay, so what do you do with that, right? A lot of these theories, these concepts, they've been said before in different ways. But what do you do? Where do you go from there? Well, the first place that comes to my mind is, a critical step is always checking your instruments. If you want to think better, if you want to make sure you're not biased or have a blind spot, you use instruments, you use tools to help you where you might miss, where you may not see things. And what better instrument really than fear and certainty? If you ever get to a topic and you have absolute certainty, if you ever get to a topic and you feel fear just overtaking you in coordination with that certainty, that it's just, back to the religion example, I know so deeply and I'm so sure and certain in God's word, and I'm so afraid that if this other country or these other people overtake us or try and overtake us, that it'll, destroy our relationship with God. You're going to do a lot of crazy things. You're going to act in a way that's not rational, that's not logical. So when you feel that, any certainty, when you feel the fear, lean in, dig in, question, understand what's driving that fear. What really am I afraid of? What's making me so certain that this horrible thing is going to happen, right? What's making me so certain that my side is right and this is definitely the way it's going to play out? Those are the things to lean into and question. So for all the people that always say, I talk to so many people that say, it's too exhausting, it's too tiring to think like this, it's too tiring to question everything. Okay, maybe, I get that. For some people, it just doesn't work. But if you're going to question anything, question those things where the fear and the certainty lies, right? Those situations, when that comes up, that's the instrument. That's the flag. That's where you need to dig in.